Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special video that's going to discuss really exposing a broken system. And I have to focus on just, hey, bringing out the truth and telling the truth and let the chips fall where they may. So one thing I have to say is welcome to my YouTube page. As you can see, that's myself and my lovely wife, Natalie. And I want to share the truth with you guys about the Federal Reserve System, the broken system, and then go into a wonderful solution that Carebars International has created. But before we do that, I'm going to start off with an actual disclaimer. Okay, this information that I'm going to share is probably going to make you upset. All right, and it's going to also probably challenge your current mindset and how you think about our global monetary system. So I'm actually going to encourage you right now to actually stop right now. If you're easily offended, if you're not open to learning new information that can help your financial future, if you're okay with how things are, just please stop. Do not listen to the rest of this information. So that's my disclaimer. This information is going to challenge your mindset, and part of it will upset you. Okay? I'm just going to lay it out there right now. This information is going to upset you, and it's going to cause you to look for answers and want to make an aggressive change. So if you're not open to that, if you're easily offended, I would recommend just stop this YouTube video right now, because we're going to discuss some stuff that's going to make you feel a little uncomfortable. It's all factual, it's all truth. So we're going to just jump in and share the truth with you right now. We're going to start with the author of the book, From Jekyll Island, The Creature from Jekyll Island. We're going to start right there. As he discusses how the Federal Reserve System was created. You know, the way something's created really indicates how things are going to be done. And when you do things the right way and you share information the right way, things come out a certain way. So we're going to jump in right now. Like I said, I already gave my disclaimer. So from here on out, if you're still listening to this YouTube video, you have selected that you want to hear the truth. And I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to show you some clips and some information that's going to assist you in making the best financial decision that you can make for this 2019 so that you can be super successful. So let's jump right in. You're still listening, so I know that you want to jump into this information and you're not easily offended and you're open to challenging your mindset. So we're going to get into this right now. We're going to start with the author, Edward Griffin, and he's going to discuss the actual creation of the Federal Reserve System, and we're going to look at that right now.
This is where the Federal Reserve System was conceived, is in that clubhouse. So let's tell that story. It all began in November of 1910 when Senator Nelson Aldrich sent his private railroad car to the New Jersey Railroad Station, where there it was in readiness for the arrival of himself and 6 other men who were instructed to come under conditions of great secrecy. For example, they were told to come one at a time, not to be seen together, not to dine together on the night of their departure. If they had arrived at the same time, they were instructed to pretend as though they didn't even know each other. They were to avoid newspaper reporters because these were well-known men, and had they been spotted by reporters, which often frequented the railroad station, especially had they been seen together, many questions would have been asked. One of the men carried a shotgun in a big black case, so that if he had been asked where he was going, he was prepared to say that he was going on a duck hunting trip. And the interesting thing about that little piece of the history is that this man, we find out later from his biographer, never fired a gun in his life. He even had to borrow that shotgun in order to participate in this conception. even after they got on board the railroad car. This pattern continued. They were told to use first names only, not to use last names. And two of the men adopted code names completely. The reason for that is that they were afraid that the servants on board the train would recognize who they were if they used their last names. And they knew that if word leaked out in that fashion and eventually found its way into the press, the whole purpose of the meeting would have been completely destroyed. So absolute secrecy was essential. Well, the train traveled for 2 nights and a day on a 1,000-mile journey to the south. And when they awoke on the second morning, the car was on the siding, the railroad siding at Brunswick, Georgia. From there, they took the ferry boat across the inland strait to Jekyll Island and to the clubhouse. And for the next 9 days, these men sat around a table and hammered out all the important details of what eventually became the Federal Reserve System. And incidentally, if you visit that clubhouse today, you can walk down to the end of the one corridor there, and on a door is a brass plaque. And it says, "In this room, the Federal Reserve System was created." When they were done, they got back on board the train, back to New York, and disappeared. And for quite a few years after that, these men denied that any such meeting ever took place. It wasn't until after the Federal Reserve was firmly established that only then did they begin to talk openly about it. They wrote books on it. One of them wrote a magazine article, and they gave interviews to newspaper reporters. And so now, many years later, it's possible for us to go to the public record and find in print detailed descriptions of what happened at that meeting. Well, who were these men? The first one I've already mentioned, the one with the railroad car, Senator Nelson Aldrich, who was the Republican whip in the Senate. He was also chairman of the National Monetary Commission, which was that special committee of Congress which was created for the purpose of proposing legislation which was to reform banking. That was the idea. Banking needed reform. And the American people were greatly concerned in those days over things that were going on in the banking industry. People were losing their money in the banks because they weren't keeping their promises to hold their deposits in reserve. There were runs on the bank and the banks couldn't pay the people back. But most of all, they were concerned over the concentration of financial power that was in the hands of a small group of very powerful and large banks in New York on Wall Street. This is what they called the money trust. That was the name. It was a very popular expression in the newspapers. And quite a few politicians were elected to office on their campaign promise to break the grip of the money trust. President Wilson was one of those politicians, by the way. So that was the purpose of the National Monetary Commission, which was to propose legislation which eventually became the Federal Reserve Act to break the grip of the money trust over the financial markets of America. Aldrich was a business associate of J.P. Morgan. He was the father-in-law to John D. Rockefeller, Jr., which means, of course, that eventually he became the grandfather of Nelson Rockefeller.
And guys, I'm going to fast forward just a little bit.
They represented approximately 1/4 of the wealth of the entire world. And these are the men that sat around a table on Jekyll Island and created the Federal Reserve System. What's going on here? Should arouse our curiosity a little bit. It didn't just happen. Well, speaking of it just happening, for the skeptics, you're probably wondering, did it really happen that way? Perhaps Griffin is exaggerating this to make a point. Well, yes, it really happened that way, and to illustrate that, we could go to a lot of documentation, but to simplify this, I'd like to just read for you a short excerpt taken from one article written by Frank Vanderlip, who was one of the attendees at that meeting. And this was written in in the Saturday Evening Post, and it appeared on February 9, 1935. And this is what Vanderlip said. I do not feel it is any exaggeration to speak of our secret expedition to Jekyll Island as the occasion of the actual conception of what eventually became the Federal Reserve System. We were told to leave our last names behind us. We were told further that we should avoid dining together on the night of our departure. We were instructed to come one at a time and as unobtrusively as possible to the railroad terminal on the New Jersey littoral of the Hudson, where Senator Aldrich's private car would be in readiness attached to the rear end of a train to the south. Once aboard the private car, we began to observe the taboo that had been fixed on last names. We addressed one another as Ben, Paul, Nelson, and Abe. Davison and I adopted even deeper disguises, abandoning our first name. On the theory that we were always right, he became Wilbur and I became Orville, after those two aviation pioneers, the Wright brothers. The servants and train crew may have known the identities of one or two of us, but they did not know all, and it was the names of all printed together that would have made our mysterious journey significant in Washington, in Wall Street, even in London. Discovery, we knew, simply must not happen. Well, why? What's the big deal here? What's wrong with a group of bankers getting together in private and talking about banking or banking legislation? And the answer to that question is provided by Vanderlip himself in the same article. He said, if it were to be exposed publicly that our particular group had got together and written a banking bill, that bill would have no chance whatever of passage by Congress. Why not? Because the purpose of the bill was to break the grip of the money trust. And ladies and gentlemen, it was written by the money trust. It's as simple as that. Had that fact been known from the very beginning, the public would never have accepted it as a means of breaking the grip over the money trust. And we would never have had a Federal Reserve System because the scam would have been exposed from the beginning.
Wow. So guys, he said the scam would have been exposed from the beginning. You know, it's just amazing when you go back into monetary history and you kind of see what's going on, you can kind of see why that was done in secret and why they went ahead and did all those things. And then you might be thinking right now, Daniel, I understand you're sharing this with me, but how does this affect me? How does this affect my family? That video you showed, it looked kind of old, you know, outdated. So I'm going to update you via Mr. Mike Maloney, okay? There's a series called The Hidden Secrets of Money. One of the foundational things that he talks about in that series is that real money has to hold its value over time. The current monetary system we have, the Federal Reserve System that we have, only benefits the people who created it, okay? So as we discuss this further, let's learn a little bit about how this affects us, because you're like, how does this affect me, Daniel? What does this do for me? How does this change my life? How does this affect me? So let's listen to Mr. Mike Maloney as he discusses that further in The Hidden Secrets of Money.
The biggest secrets in the history of the world. It's a secret that has huge effects for everyone who lives on this planet. Most people can feel deep down that something isn't quite right with the world economy, but few know what it is. Gone are the days where a family can survive on just one paycheck. Every day it seems things are more and more out of control, yet only 1 in a million understand why. You are about to discover the system that is ultimately responsible for most of the inequality in our world today. The powers that be do not want you to know about this, as this system is what has kept them at the top of the financial food chain for the last 100 years. Learning this will change your life because it'll change the choices that you make. If enough people learn it, it'll change the world because it'll change the system. For this is the biggest hidden secret of money. Never in human history have so many been plundered by so few, and it's all accomplished through this, the biggest scam in the history of mankind. They say that money doesn't grow on trees, but the truth is that the modern banking system creates currency far faster than trees can grow. Most people don't have a clue how currency is created. Economists and bankers make it sound so complex that people think they can't understand it. But I'm going to strip our monetary system down to its essence so that you can see the scam behind the curtain, just how it affects you. Every modern society creates currency in pretty much the same way. But since the US dollar is the majority of the world's currency, I'm going to use the United States as our example. It all starts when some politician says, "Vote for me and I'll make sure the government provides you more free stuff than my opponent will." But there's no such thing as a free lunch. So to provide that supposedly free stuff, the politicians vote for the country to spend more than its income. This is called deficit spending. To pay for that deficit spending, the Treasury borrows currency by issuing a bond. So what's a bond? If you think about it, a bond is really nothing but a glorified IOU. It's a pretty piece of paper with numbers printed on it that says, "Loan me $1 trillion today, and I promise over a 10-year period I'm going to pay you back that $1 trillion plus interest." But what you need to understand is that Treasury bonds are our national debt. These glorified IOUs are to be paid back by you and I and our descendants through future taxation. Therefore, when the government issues a bond, it steals prosperity out of the future so that it can spend it today. The Treasury then holds a bond auction, and the world's largest banks show up and compete to buy part of our national debt and make a profit on it by earning interest. You'll notice that as we move through this process, the big banks are there, taking a cut every step of the way. This isn't by chance, as you'll see shortly. Then, through a shell game called open market operations, the banks get to sell some of those bonds to the Federal Reserve at a profit. To pay for the bonds, the Federal Reserve opens up its big old checkbook and writes bad, bogus, counterfeit checks that should bounce because they're drawn on an account that always has a zero balance. There isn't one penny in there. To quote from the Boston Federal Reserve, "When you or I write a check, there must be sufficient funds in our account to cover that check. But when the Federal Reserve writes a check, there is no bank deposit on which that check is drawn. When the Federal Reserve writes a check, it is creating money." The Fed then hands those checks to the banks, and at this point, currency springs into existence. The banks then take that currency and buy more bonds at the next Treasury auction. But what is a check? A check is also an IOU. When you write a check, you're making a note that says, "Here's my IOU for cash. All you have to do is go to the bank and pick it up." Now, it's very, very important that you understand this process, because we're going to come back later and show you the devastating effect this has on you. The Treasury issues IOUs, bonds. The banks then buy those IOUs with currency. The Federal Reserve then writes IOUs, checks, and hands them to the banks in exchange for the Treasury's IOUs, the bonds. And currency is created. So what's really happening is the Federal Reserve and the Treasury are just swapping IOUs, using the banks as middlemen, and abracadabra, presto, currency magically springs into existence. This process repeats and repeats over and over again, enriching the banks and indebting the public by raising the national debt. The end result is that there's a buildup of bonds at the Federal Reserve and currency at the Treasury. This process is also where all paper currency comes from. The Federal Reserve and the government mistakenly call it base money because they didn't watch episode 1 of this series, and they don't know the difference between money and currency. But I will correctly refer to it as base currency because it is not money. It is currency, and as we've learned, there is a big difference. Money has to be a store of value and maintain its purchasing power over long periods of time. We learned in episode 1 that earlier in our history, our paper currency was just a claim check. It was a representation for real money of intrinsic value, the gold and silver that was held on deposit at the Treasury. You could walk into any bank and slap your currency, like say a $20 bill, on the counter and redeem it for real money, a $20 gold piece. But now, this base currency that's piling up back here is really nothing but a receipt or a claim check on an IOU, that bond. So it's really nothing but a supply of numbers. The Treasury then deposits the newly created currency into the various branches of the government, And the politicians say, hey, thanks for that. And the government does some deficit spending on public works, social programs, and war. The government employees, contractors, and soldiers then deposit their pay in the banks. Now, this may come as a shock to you, but when you deposit your currency with the bank, you're not actually depositing it into an account to be safely held in trust for you. Instead, you're actually loaning the bank your currency, and within certain legal limits, they can do with it pretty much anything they please. This includes gambling in the stock market and loaning it out at a profit, of course. Now this is where the machine of currency creation really gets cranking, because this is where something called fractional reserve lending comes into play. Fractional reserve lending is exactly what it says. The banks are allowed to reserve only a fraction of your deposit and loan the rest out. Although reserve ratios may vary, I'm going to use a 10% reserve ratio as our example. If you deposit $100 in your account, the bank can legally take $90 of it and loan it out without telling you. The bank must hold $10 of your deposit in reserve just in case you want some of it. These reserves are called vault cash. But why does your bank account still say you have $100 if the bank has stolen $90 of it? Because the bank left IOUs it created, called bank credit, in its place. Now I know this sounds crazy, but here it is in black and white from the Fed. Commercial banks create checkbook money when they grant a loan simply by adding new deposit dollars in accounts on their books in exchange for a borrower's IOU. These are nothing but numbers that the banks type into their computers. And even though these bank credit IOU numbers are very different from base currency numbers, because they only exist in computers, they are still currency. So now there is $190 in existence. Now the reason people take out loans from the banks is to buy something. They're going to buy a house or a car or something like that. So the borrower takes the $90 that the bank loaned to him from your account, and he pays the seller of the item. But then the seller deposits that currency into his account, and his bank loans out 90% of that and leaves bank credit numbers in its place. So now there's $271 in existence. This process repeats and repeats until under a 10% reserve ratio, an initial deposit of just $100 can create up to $1,000 of bank credit, all backed by $100 of vault cash, just 10%. But as I said, reserve ratios vary wildly. On some deposits, it's 10%, on others, it's 3%, and on some forms of deposits, reserve requirements are 0. The result is that the expansion of the currency supply by the banks is far greater than even this example would lead you to believe. So once again, when currency is deposited in the banks get to lend it out, and then it gets redeposited and relent, redeposited and relent, redeposited and relent over and over again, creating bank credit all the way. This is where the vast majority of our currency supply comes from. In fact, 92 to 96% of all currency in existence is created not by the government, but here in the banking system. Now, massive amounts of currency spewing into society may at first sound like a fun idea. That is, until you remember one of the most important hidden secrets of money from episode 1, that the prices of everyday goods and services act as a sponge on an expanding currency supply. The more currency we have, the more prices rise. This is where inflation comes from. The true definition of inflation is an expansion of the currency supply. Rising prices are merely the symptom. So our entire currency supply is nothing but a couple of bucks whipped up in this hocus-pocus scam where the Treasury and the Federal Reserve swap glorified IOUs, and a bunch of numbers that the banks just type into their computers. That's it. That's our entire currency supply. It's nothing but a supply of numbers. Some of them printed, most of them typed, and there is nothing else. But if you thought that was crazy, get ready to enter the twilight zone of modern economics. We work for some of that currency supply. True wealth is your time, but we trade away moments of our lives, hour by hour, day by day, year by year, for numbers that somebody printed on pieces of paper or just typed into a computer. Now those numbers represent our blood, sweat, tears, labor, ideas, and talent. We are what gives the currency its value. But here comes the really cruel joke. We work hard, so that we can save some of that currency, so that we can pay the tax collector in the United States, it's known as the IRS. They then turn it over to the Treasury so that the Treasury can pay the principal plus interest on that bond that the Federal Reserve bought with a check drawn on an account that has nothing in it. Now let's do a recap on this section, because this is where the system begins to rob you and I on a massive scale. Much of our taxes are not used for schools, roads, and public services, but to pay interest on bonds that the Federal Reserve bought with a check drawn on an account that has nothing in it. The Federal Reserve is committing fraud. But here's one of the biggest secrets of them all. Before the establishment of the Federal Reserve, there was no need for personal income tax. The Federal Reserve was created in 1913, and that very same year, the Constitution was amended to allow income tax. Do you really think this was just a coincidence? Ask yourself how much income tax you've paid over your lifetime. Much of it has been silently siphoned away into the hands of those who own the system. Yes, this system has owners. Who they are is an even bigger secret that we'll get to shortly. But first, we need to understand the mumbo-jumbo of the so-called debt ceiling.
So guys, as you listen to that information, like I said, this is not for the faint of heart. Mr. Mike Maloney does a great job explaining it and in a visual way. So what are some things we can do to protect ourselves? Because that system is all based in debt. It's a debt-based fractional lending system. So how do we move away from that? How do we escape that broken system? There's several leaders throughout the world that have found solutions. There's several people who have started on the path and understand the foundation of monetary history. All begins with physical gold, like Mr. Mike Maloney alluded to. So here's a short clip from Dr. Miles Monroe prior to him passing. And he's talking about something that we can all do now as I move into a little bit more of a solution to this broken monetary system called the Federal Reserve.
They already know the European Union. So if you can buy gold now, you buy it. But you want to get as much as possible and lock it down. You want to keep it, don't sell it. And you notice that they're doing this all over the world. They're going all over the world just buying gold.
So you believe gold is the most valuable asset
Gold
right now?
is going to be the foundation for currency. It's going to be more important than paper.
So what I understand is in Zimbabwe right now.
It's all over the world.
Wow.
But they will tell you that. I've done all my research on business.
So that's why the government is trying to get it off the
They want to
street.
give streets. Yeah.
So that's why
They don't want the citizens to have gold.
They don't want the citizens to have gold. So part of the solution, guys, is to acquire physical gold. Okay, so we just heard from Dr. Miles Monroe. Now we're going to hear from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan as he explains almost the same exact thing. What's amazing is that the truth of this has been explained by so many different leaders in so many different walks of life. Business leaders, spiritual leaders, economists like Mr. Mike Maloney, Mr. Robert Kiyosaki. I mean, people are telling us what we should be doing, and I'm hoping that this video sheds some light. Yes, this information is challenging. Yes, this is not common knowledge, unfortunately, but we need to fix that.
In 1961, I was sitting with Elijah Muhammad, and he took out of his pocket a gold coin. This is 1 ounce of gold, pure gold, okay? Mr. Muhammad put it on the table. He said, one day soon, this gold coin will be the new medium of exchange. white people are moving into the inner city. Some of them knocking on doors. They come with money and they ask you for your gold. Because what they're giving you, I think I got some of that in my pocket. Yeah, I think I do. Now this is paper. This is not real money. This is real money. Silver. That's real money. Now you young people, some of the elders in the audience, like myself, this used to be called a silver certificate. How many old people in here know when this was a silver certificate? And you know what it said on the bottom? Pay to the bearer on demand $50 in silver, the real money. This is what you call monopoly money.
So he said that is what you call monopoly money. And he actually just reiterated what we just heard from Mike Maloney, who is an economist. He said that there was a time where you would take that certificate and you would go to the bank and they would have to give you the real money, which is gold or silver, right? So he just reiterated exactly what was in that other video. And like I said, guys, this information is so important for your financial future. It affects everyone in the world because everyone is connected to this broken, failing system. We have to, in a way, unplug from this matrix, okay? And as you hear this information, you're gonna wanna take action, okay? And we're gonna actually jump into two more discussions. You know, I love the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Mr. Robert Kiyosaki, shares with us even more details of why we should escape this current system and not save currency.
Now we're going to the sacred cow of save money. And in 1971, President Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, basically took the world off the gold standard, and money was no longer money. So people are no longer saving money. So just to reiterate again, this is $300, what an ounce of gold was worth in the year 2000. So Jim, lift that. Okay. All right, and so this here is 1 ounce of gold in the year 2010, and it's now $1,100. And this is why people are working so hard. So the big reason I've said in my books for years that savers were losers is very simply because in 1971, the dollar stopped being money, it became debt. Right, Mike?
Yeah, the rules all changed in 71. Before then, somebody, when they became working age, they could expect to put away 10% a year, and by the time they got into their 60s, they could retire on their savings account and expect to live off that interest. And in 71, everything changed, and they started creating currency on a massive scale
Worldwide.
Ever since then, worldwide. And that is what causes inflation and the loss of purchasing power. So people thinking that they can retire, back in the 50s, if you got $100,000 or $50,000, you could retire.
So for my mom and dad, the World War II generation, the industrialized generation, it was very smart to save money. For our generation, the baby boom generation and on, saving money could be the most stupid thing you can do because the system is stealing your wealth through the very thing you work for called money, which is not money.
Right. Real money is actually gold and silver. Money has to maintain its value over long periods of time. Currency doesn't have to.
And this is historically, has always been, for thousands of years, this has been money.
5,000 years, this has been the predominant currency. It became money when somebody minted it into coins in Lydia in about 680 BC. And each unit had the same buying power as the next one. They became interchangeable.
So let me ask you this. This printing of money out of this paper, this has been tried before, hasn't it?
Many, many, many times. And there's always one result. You get far, far higher prices of everything, but especially real money when they start creating a whole lot of currency. Eventually, gold and silver lie in wait. And then when the public senses this inflation of retail prices that is caused by inflation of the amount of the quantity of currency in circulation, they rush back toward gold and silver, and they have for 5,000 years.
So name some governments that have attempted to print money.
The Weimar Republic. I don't know what I just did with that $100 trillion bill. The Zimbabwe, yeah.
Look at this one.
This is the most recent. A $100 trillion note. You know, this is the largest note ever printed. 100 trillion.
This was printed in 2000.
Yeah, but when Zimbabwe was created as a country, when it went from Rhodesia to Zimbabwe, they were the Zimbabwean dollar was on parity with the U.S. dollar. $1 US was the same as the Zimbabwe dollar. This doesn't buy anything today. It doesn't buy a cup of coffee.
What, doesn't even buy a cup of coffee?
No. In fact, they have ruined it by putting ink on it. You can't write you can't write a list. So it would have been more valuable at this point if it was blank.
See, the Greeks did the same thing when they started clipping coins. They just take the silver off of it. The Romans tried it. The English tried it. The Germans tried it. The Chinese tried it. And now the U.S. is trying it. And so that's why saving money is probably the biggest mistake you could make right now, because today money is no longer money. It's now debt.
I can vouch for that because my leg is now numb.
So all currencies throughout the world are in trouble, the same way this Zimbabwe dollar is in trouble. That's the problem with saving money. After 1971, it was no longer money.
More than 70% of all the currency on the planet is U.S. dollars.
If the U.S. dollar goes, the world goes with it.
I'm preparing by getting fully diversified. I buy both gold and...
And guys, you're hearing that again from Robert Kiyosaki, and along with Mike Maloney again. There's a huge failing system that we're all connected to. So how do we shift? Is there a shift? Is there an opportunity for us to escape this current debt-based system like Robert Kiyosaki just mentioned? So yes, there is, and it's not going to be held in the stock market, as alluded to by Mike Maloney and Robert Kiyosaki. So let's hear from Mr. Alan Austin. He is one of the top financial advisors, and he is in the top 5% of income earners within the world, and he is also a Karatbars affiliate.
The unfortunate thing, as I listen to it, is that this isn't new, right? Market corrections happen all the time. They've been happening since the beginning of time as it pertains to when the market started. Unfortunately, many of us haven't learned from our mistakes, and I say us loosely, right? I'm obviously not talking about any of the wealth builders team, because I know that if you've been around wealth builders long enough, you've heard either from me or from Mr. Best or from Mr. Dalco, talking about the dangers of what happens in financial markets, particularly as it pertains to you investing what you would consider your life savings. But it continues to hold true that because we haven't learned from our mistakes, people will continue to get wiped out. And I want this team in particular to think differently about the market. Think about the stock market like the same way you would think about the blockchain, right? The blockchain is just a highway where information gets passed, right? Transaction gets passed. Think about the stock market as simply the highway where wealth gets transferred from the novice to the professional. And I'll say that again. Think about the stock market as the highway where wealth gets transferred from the novice to the professional. Now hear me, I'm not advocating that you don't invest. I'm just advocating that you recognize the game. And in the financial game, assets, not paper, always win. Assets, not paper, always win. Okay? Think about some of the things that she said in that call. I mean, it was amazing. And I jotted down a few notes of things that sort of jumped out at me when I was listening to it. She mentioned the fact that regulations are continuing to be loosened, right? And I know that for a fact because, a lot of the major banks are my clients, and they are loosening regulations. And she highlighted that as a signal for danger ahead. She also talked about the fact that financial innovations or, these fancy different things that banks come up with as a way to outline or outlay what they do from a financial perspective, it amounts to speculation and experimentation. So banks are speculating and experimenting with your money, right? She talked about the fact that Wall Street needs your wealth for the market to work. They need your money for the market to work. Not their money, but they need your money for the market to work, right? She mentioned the fact that they were at a point now where they were determining whether there was enough risk that had already been transferred to the public so that they could instigate the next crisis. Think about that. Had they gotten to the point where they had transferred enough of the risk to the novice so that they could instigate the next crisis? Meanwhile, they're getting out. All the big money is getting out. All the banks are getting out. And the plan is to leave your money in while they get out. All the while, the central bankers are scooping up gold. I mean, think about everything that she just said in there. She is the voice crying in the wilderness to the novice on the superhighway of the market saying, get out, because the big money, the banks, the professional investors, they're all getting out. Don't play with your savings. Don't play with your investments. Acquire assets. Get out. She also mentioned the fact, and I know this, but she mentioned about the fact that the FDIC only has about a penny for every dollar that's insured. So when banks tell you up to $250,000 of your deposits could be insured, when you look at that over the span, over the breadth of all the deposits, it equates to about a penny for every dollar that's insured. So if a bank crashes, your money's gone. That's frightening, right? She got emotional because she recognizes it, right? I've talked to clients until I was blue in the face to try to get them to think about something different, think about doing different things with their money. Count your lucky stars that you are involved with this team, that you are involved with Carrot Bars, because you have a way out. You have a way out. It's up to you. Back to you, Mrs. Brown.
Guys, you have a way out. So Carrot Bars International is absolutely providing that way out for everyone who wants to get involved with the best money system, especially because it's really the only money system. You've listened to Robert Kiyosaki, Mr. Mike Maloney. I have to welcome you to Carrot Bars now, which is an actual solution because it's the only money system. Our current monetary system is not a money system. It is strictly a debt-based system. Carrot Bars International will position you because it's a superior system for you to live and enjoy the lifestyle that you deserve, okay? What are we doing? What's the idea behind Carrot Bars International? We are saving gold as a wealth-building asset, and we're earning commissions by referring others. All we're doing is acquiring physical assets in this system by acquiring physical gold, okay? Carrot Bars International, that's a picture of the main office in Stuttgart, Germany. And it was established in 2011. And as I mentioned, it's headquartered in Stuttgart, Germany. And we currently have over 500 affiliates throughout the world. We have the world's first fully licensed cryptocurrency bank in Miami, Florida. I'll mention that and talk about that a little bit more. We have Coin Bank offices in Hong Kong. Carrot Pay is our payment system, and its offices are in Singapore. And then we have offices in Dubai and Bangladesh and other areas throughout the world. And this is our CEO and founder, Mr. Harold Seitz. And you can actually meet him face-to-face April 12th and April 12th and 13th. He'll be here in Atlanta, Georgia for our event called the Let's Go Weekend, and you can meet him face-to-face. And his mission is to produce the highest quality of gold available in the market, make it easily accessible to masses of honest people around the world at a price point everyone can afford. His goal is to help millions find financial freedom from our current system of debt with Karatbars. So guys, we've heard and seen a lot of information about exposing that broken system that is the financial, Federal Reserve and financial system that we're currently in. So Karatbar CEO and founder is going to be able to assist with us shifting into the only real money system. So he promises that the Karatbars and Gold Standard Bank will continue to promote and defend the financial freedom and security of every human being, independent and in a decentralized manner. All right, so that is so important because we've seen the current system. We know it continues to fail. Mr. Allen Austin mentioned that just a few moments before. Even Mr. Mike Maloney and Robert Kiyosaki talked about crashes and things like that. Is part of that system because that system is a system of debt. So once again, Robert Kiyosaki and Mike Maloney alluded to it. They have been focusing on acquiring physical gold. But I'm going to be honest about it. You know, gold was not affordable before Karatbars International. So it wasn't something that everyone could join in on. But Karatbars has completely fixed and solved that problem. So everyone, average people like you and I, can go ahead and start acquiring physical gold. And here's just a simple illustration. They talked about it in that long video with Robert Kiyosaki. But the prices of goods and services continue to increase, but the dollar, the US dollar, all currencies continue to buy less and less of goods and services. So that $20 bill buys less and less of goods and services as we continue on. And then you see this in other things too, like vehicles, okay? About $645 to get that vehicle. That equals about 1 kilogram of gold. And then when you come over to this vehicle now, a newer vehicle, look at the price jump. It's all the way up to over $40,000. But when it comes to physical gold, it's actually the same amount of physical gold because gold, once again, like Mr. Robert Kiyosaki and Mike Maloney mentioned, is a best store of value. So it keeps its purchasing power over long periods of time because gold is the only real money. Currency continues to drop in value because that's the way it's designed. That's why Robert Kiyosaki says, do not save in paper, do not save in currency. So here's some of our products. We have cash gold and actual classic gold. Those cash gold look like a dollar bill or a euro, but they have physical gold embedded within the bill. Our future and our focus too is to be able to make it convenient for people to use physical gold. One of the disadvantages of gold, of course, is that it is heavy and it is hard to move around. But Karatbars has actually solved that by making gold affordable to the masses. They've also made it small and transaction friendly. Then they've also made it compatible with an app called Carrot Pay, where you can actually transfer your cash gold back and forth in an app similar to all these different apps like Apple Pay and PayPal. And we're so used to doing everything digitally, we have that as an option here with Karatbars International. So as I mentioned, Carrot Pay is an app that you can use. You can actually download that app now on Apple or Google Play, and you'll be able to actually log on to that account and send actual real physical gold via that app to whoever you need to or whoever you want to with their wallet number. And yes, we actually have cryptocurrency. We have the world's first cryptocurrency that is backed by physical gold. Everything we do here is focused on real money, which is physical gold. And those carat gold coins are available. You definitely want to acquire those because they are backed by gold, and there's several incentives right now to help you acquire that cryptocurrency, the world's first cryptocurrency backed by gold. And we also have our own cryptocurrency exchange. All that means is we have a platform where people can exchange cryptocurrency, all different cryptocurrency, not just ours, and transact business throughout the world. And Carrot Pay, as I mentioned, is going to have a global payment solution. So we'll have ATMs throughout the world, and I'll also talk to you more about our smartphone that has the world's first voice over blockchain technology. So our Karatbars universe is amazing. There's a lot of information on this slide, guys. What's really the main thing about this is that we have a global wealth building system. Every time we acquire physical gold from the mines that we own, our products, which is backed by physical gold, increases in value. The actual system starts to share fees. If you've never been in a situation where your bank shared fees with you, which is pretty common in the United States, banks keep all of those fees to themselves, transaction fees, they keep ATM fees, all of those fees that they collect, they don't share it with us. Well, Karatbars International and the system that we have here actually shares the profits and the fees with its members, which is amazing. So every time it collects fees, it actually acquires more physical gold, and that increases the value. So it continues this wealth building cycle. Like I said, everything begins with the world's best money, which is physical gold. And we tap into our own cryptocurrency that's connected to physical gold. We tap into our own exchange where people are exchanging for goods and services and things of that nature with the Carrot Pay app that they're showing right here. And even to the point where we own the world's first cryptocurrency bank, and we're going to move into that space. And like I mentioned, we also have coming out in a few months the world's first voice over blockchain cell phone. So a smartphone that's going to put you in a position where you can have less fees because there's no international roaming, because it's using new technology on the blockchain network, okay? And the blockchain is amazing technology that's going to change and has already changed how this world's monetary system is going to operate. So Karatbars International is connected to all of these great innovations supported by physical gold, okay? So like I mentioned, we got a lot of great things coming on. In March, we have the K-Phone, which is the world's first voice over blockchain smartphone, okay? Completely encrypted and protected. You'll have an opportunity to acquire that phone. You can actually connect it through Wi-Fi or even through satellite. We are a global business. Also on July 4th, upcoming is going to be Gold Independence Day. All of the digital currency that we have can be exchanged for physical gold. This has never been done before. September 4th, we're looking at the pre-sale is going to be finished. So we'll actually move out of the ICO, which is initial coin offering, and move into a fully coin that's going to be circulating. And then also the mainnet is our own blockchain that's going to be created in September 20th. And then we have a combination of those coins, or when those coins move into our actual own blockchain, which is the hard fork in October. And then of course we have that gold new year where the mainnet coin will be completely exchangeable for even a better value of physical gold. So we have a lot of amazing things going on with Karatbars International. We are the only money system, and you can tap into the system in a lot of different ways, which is amazing. You can start with a free account. You own your own shop, your landing page, digital brochures. Yes, I said you can actually register for free. You can do the free affiliate registration in a matter of minutes. In this free position, you have unilevel commissions, generational bonuses. There's a lot of great things within this affiliate program that you could tap into as you choose to. And we have new promotions coming on all the time. And you want to jump in and build 3 teams for maximum effect, especially in that unilevel where you can actually earn up to 6% to infinity in a free position, guys. So Care Bars International, like I mentioned, is putting everyone on an even playing field. And this is a true money system where you can tap into building wealth. And if you choose to, you can select to do the dual team. It's an optional purchase, one-time purchase of a business package, and then you can move into opening up a vault of possibilities when it comes to being paid on the dual team, which I'll explain to you in just a moment. These are the dual team packages shown here in euros. So we have the VIP package, which I jumped in immediately and got my VIP about 3 years ago. We have the gold package. We have the silver package. Guys, you just jump in, get whatever business package you can. This is all physical packages that will be delivered to your address via our delivery partner. Based on where you're located, we will, of course, offer digital packages for some locations where shipping might not be available. But guys, you get in and you jump in and you get any of these business packages. These are income producing assets and they all contain physical gold. So their value is just well worth it. As we've learned, we want to move out of the current monetary system and move into something that's actually a real money system. And then you have an option to do a Care Bars fast track, okay? So you get free upgrades to the next highest level. When you jump in and get a business package of any kind, you have someone else, 5 other people, jump in and get a business package of your same level or higher. The company's going to give you a free upgrade. Okay, you get a free upgrade to the next highest package, and you can keep doing that and get all the way to VIP if you need to. With all the business packages, there's direct commissions of 10% on the first generation of people you connect to the business. And as they connect other people, you get 3% on that. And as they connect other people, your third generation, they get 2% on that. So you have a true money-making system in the dual commissions. So you have 2 teams in the dual team system, which is optional. So every time there's someone on your left team or your right team acquires gold or products, it creates units. So everything has a unit value within the system. And then as you acquire and accumulate 25 units on one side, 50 units on the other side, doesn't matter which side it is, you'll get a dual team payout. And you're probably wondering, well, what's the payout, Daniel? How much can I get? And then I will tell you, how much do you want to get? If you want to be a VIP, your dual team payout would be around 80 euro. Gold is around 60 euro. Silver is about 50 euro. So you can do the math. Obviously, VIP is the place to be. And those dual team payouts go all the way down to infinity. There's no levels in Care Bars International because we're not a multi-level marketing company. We are a true money system, okay? And we are a licensed e-commerce company doing business actively in over 120 countries. And we have the maximum of 180,000 dual team payouts per week. So you have an option to create massive income if you choose. And with this matching bonus, guys, they are spreading the wealth. Every time you acquire and someone else acquires and has a payout, you're getting additional payment off of all those first generation, second generation, third or fourth. And if you're VIP, you can actually earn 5% on multiple generations all the way down to the 7th generation of people that are within your organization. As they get paid, you get a matching bonus. So it's just spreading the wealth around for everyone involved. These are some of our digital profit packages that have actual cryptocurrency where you're going to get a digital package that's so well worth it, because this is all jam-packed with the world's first cryptocurrency that is backed by physical gold, along with getting bonuses on top of that. So for example, if you did that 1,700 euro package, you're actually getting 1,700 worth of cryptocurrency. Then they're adding an additional bonus. Okay, you guys, you want to act on this immediately, because those bonus amounts are going to start getting reduced as we get closer and closer to selling out of all of the cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency has a cap, has a limit, so that way they're not just printing it out of thin air like our current monetary system. So that doesn't exist in this system, which is wonderful. So we have profit packages all the way up to 1 million euro. Okay, so the value within these is just immense, because the euro amount that you are acquiring the package for, you get that much of cryptocurrency, and then you also get a bonus on top of that. And there's so many other benefits to it also. So get back with the person sharing this information with you. And there you have it, guys. That's the €1,000,000 package at the bottom right. So how do we get paid? We have a privately issued prepaid MasterCard. Okay, so that means MasterCard is our payment partner. This is not a debt instrument like the current system that we're connected to. This is just a prepaid MasterCard, and we do get paid out in euros. Okay, so we have a complete wealth building machine, guys. This system is way superior than our current monetary system. Way superior because it's connected to actual physical gold, the best form of money. So we have a world market, a gigantic market potential of over 7 billion customers, very unique products. This company is so innovative. We are doing things that no one else can do. And you can earn income part-time, your time, around the spare time. It's all guided by your personal goals and dreams, okay? So get started immediately. Get your free registration completed right away. Take advantage of our systems. We have landing pages and websites that are active that you can tap into all time. And use the double income option to get your free package in the dual SIM. So you have a lot of great things. We have webinars, live meeting, conferences. We have live events throughout the Atlanta area coming up, along with a live event coming up in April where you can meet the CEO and founder of Care Bars International, Mr. Harold Seitz, face-to-face. April 12th is absolutely free for everyone. So I encourage you guys to take immediate action. You're watching this on my YouTube page. Go ahead and visit our website right away, called www.kickstartyourdreams.net. Thank you for spending time with me today, and I look forward to helping you enjoy the lifestyle that you deserve. Let's tap into this together, and let's go ahead and get into a real money system, as opposed to the money system right now that is continuing to fail with bust and booms and having a debt-based system. We're going to move away from that, and we're going to move into sound money, which is physical gold, and the world's first cryptocurrency that is connected, once again, to physical gold. So get back with whoever's sharing Care Bars International with you. If that person is me, visit our website on the bottom of this YouTube page. Thank you for listening.